there, Seraphim17 once again, introducing you to my Devil May Cry 3 Dante Must Die difficulty video walkthrough. This is mission 15 and this is Gatecrasher. So I believe this is probably my least favourite mission of the game because it's very long and it's boring and there are some environments that just should not exist, coupled with enemies that should not exist, coupled with just bullshit factors. And if you're going for an SS rank or an S rank, this is one of those missions that's going to make you fail because it fucking blows. The very first fight off the bat is against two Fallen. And you'll notice I don't have the Royal Guard, but I do have Agni and Rudra, and I have Quicksilver this time. See if I can capitalise on their weakness with Quicksilver. And it's working pretty well. Not working as well as I wish it would. Because to me, you should be able to jump cancel off the Fallen's torso, just like you can off the back of Beowulf, which is pretty much suicide on the later difficulties, but it's really fun to do nonetheless. Yeah, watch out for when they rear back like that. It means they're going to throw the sword and it's going to do a massive area of effect. It's just a giant explosion and it's bad news. But once again, the reason that this is bullshitty is look at them. I can't hit them because they're going through the wall and then they're coming through the wall to hit me. It's the camera that's against you, it's the geometry that's against you, it's just a bad enemy design. And I hate it. I think the only fortunate thing about these guys is, on the lower difficulties, this might be one of the only times you actually fight them. And obviously on the lower difficulties, they also die much quicker because they don't have none of the Devil Trigger nonsense. But we'll soon find out. There's the area of effect. You need to get away from that as quickly as possible. And guns do hurt them, but I wouldn't recommend using them too much. Because, I don't know, the guns on this game are definitely not the way forward. The guns on Devil May Cry 2 are probably the most overpowered thing in the game. I don't understand that at all. Like, I think the first game had the best balance. There were some enemies the guns absolutely brutalised. There were other enemies that your sword was the best bet against. Goodness me, this guy's kicking my ass. Yeah, this is one of those fights where you just... I don't think anybody can tell you they enjoy fighting this enemy unless they're masters at Royal Guard. That is probably the only situation where fighting those guys could be even remotely fun. But what I'm going to do here for you is there's a little technique of going through this tower where you don't have to fight the spider fight at the end. So the hardest fight about this mission for me personally is the mandatory spider fight at the end. But there's a technique of going through each of the areas and using the turnstile to change the tower so that you don't have to fight at the very last room. And I didn't know this until quite a while into playing Devil May Cry 3, because my usual path through this level is the quickest by far, but it is also the one that enables the spiders to kick your ass at the end. So this way is going to be slightly slower and a path that you've probably not seen before, but you will not have to fight them at the end, and it's a lifesaver, especially if you're going for rank, because the spiders themselves, there is no guaranteed way to fight them perfectly unless you're going to use Artemis and Gunslinger, and it's just one of those styles that people don't generally use. But this is what you need to beat up, and the rule of thumb is do it twice in every room that you encounter it. If you beat it up twice every time you need to use it, you will not have to fight the spiders at the end. That is the strategy I'm going to be utilising, and that is what you're going to be seeing. And all you're going to see on this section of the game is areas you've been to before, warped by the fact that Temin Negru grew when the underworld was opened, and all that great nonsense that happened. But like I said, this is an exceptionally long mission, and it's going to be filled with areas that we've been in before, so I'm not going to chirp up excuse me, as far as strategy goes, unless you're fighting something I think you need to know. The gameplay itself should speak for itself, hopefully, and it enables me to talk about some of the movies I've been watching, because I've had to watch a lot, because I don't have the internet. But I watched a film called The Divide, and I had no idea what this film was. My buddy just put it on my hard drive when he came over to my house to try and fix my router, and it had Michael Byhern in it, and it had some of the saddest music that I've heard in a while that just fit really appropriately. And the setup for the film is nuclear bombs get dropped in like New York, and these people are trying to run away in this building, and they follow the tenant, or the guy who's like the janitor of this building, into the basement where he's got this air raid shelter because he's a super, you know, psychopathic, thinking that 9/11's going to happen every day, you know, just he's gone the complete opposite. He's off in cuckoo's land. And these people are a pretty mixed batch of them, actually. And they're all sealed, these people, into essentially an air raid shelter that's got a couple of different rooms, a bunch of rations, stored food, you know, I think they've got water, I think they've got power, they've got an interesting toilet, and that's it. And it's kind of doing the whole the, you know, Dawn of the Dead thing of, it's not the zombies that are the problem, it's everything else, you know, it's human nature. Hell is other people type scenarios, and that is what this is exploring, because it shows you just the breakdown of this group of strangers that go from being super polite and conscientious of each other to just, you know, violent and decadent, and it goes absolutely off the deep end. And I do believe if you overthink this film a little bit too much, you're probably not going to enjoy it, because it's got some tenuous strands of plot in it that just make you think, what the fuck's going on here? But there's also enough to keep you watching, because very early on in the film, there's a bunch of these armoured guys in this white armour with this gun that is the most ridiculous thing I've seen ever, and it kind of... I couldn't enjoy the parts with these soldiers because I was too busy looking at how fucking preposterous the gun was. Because you know how in the 80s and the early 90s, every sci-fi futuristic film that came out, all they did to make the thing look more futuristic was put a massive amount of red dots, stupid sights, stupid lasers all over the guns that were from our day to make them look more futuristic. And that's what they did. They just threw on the most ridiculous bunch of accessories that wouldn't even make the gun functional. It'd make it impractical, it'd make it, you know, too heavy, too front heavy, it would be very difficult to aim with. But that's what they did, because it made everything look futuristic. And if you don't get what I'm on about right now, watch Predator 2. But this film did the exact same thing. It's 2012 and it's doing the exact same thing. And what it had is, these guys in the white armour, in these like hazmat suits with all this futuristic gear, they had what essentially looked like an M4, but it had like 9 barrels attached to it, all underslung. It had a knife at the end, like a bayonet. It had a sight. It had an RAS system. It had so many rail systems on the side of it with things attached. It didn't have a standard magazine or like even a drum magazine. It had a saw. It had like an M249 fucking box magazine mounted to the bottom of it. Then it had random bullets at the side on its hilt, and I didn't understand that at all. On its stock, sorry, not its hilt. Completely wrong word. But it's just like, why? It was the fucking stupidest thing ever, and I could not help but stare at this stupid gun. And every time it turned up in the story, I'm just like, put that stupid gun down, it's ridiculous. It looks like that gun in Beverly Hills Cop 3 that plays them songs and microwave shit. It's that fucking dumb. It was offensive. But that aside, actually kind of interesting as the societal structure and the hierarchy between the people just completely breaks down. And because they're all radiation poisoned, so they're losing their hair and they're realising that they're dying, and it goes down some pretty dark alleyways, and some of the scenes are really uncomfortable to watch, but I do think they're interesting because of that. And just the relationship between it's really tense, really claustrophobic, and towards the end it's just messed up. And there's an interesting twist to it where one of the characters realises that there's pretty much no hope and it's every man for themselves, so they sacrifice everybody in hope of them getting away. And me personally, putting myself in the shoes, I don't get that. I've never got that at all, because you stand so much of a better chance surviving with other people than you do on your own. I'm not talking about a massive group, I'm just talking about somebody to talk to, so you don't go, you know, Tom Hanks insane talking to a football on a fucking desert island nonsense. I don't get it at all. And it's not that they didn't have food, because there was plenty of food. It's not like they needed to share food. And it's not like they're even going to last that long, because they're already irradiated. The world is over. The world ended. So there's not like they're going to go somewhere and be saved. It's just essentially them waiting to die. And I would rather wait to die with some company than wait to die on my own. I really would. So to me, kind of didn't make much sense. But emotionally to the film, it was an interesting twist. And it was okay. It wasn't a great film. It was interesting. It had some good green screen at the end to show you the end of the world. That was kind of cool. But it made me think, which is always an interesting film, and it also made me uncomfortable, which I do think is a good thing as well, because for a film to be able to elicit a response from me is good filmmaking in my eyes. But I also watched 21 Jump Street, and that couldn't have been more different to The Divide in any other way. God, such a stupid film. And if you've not seen it, it's basically Channing Tatum and I always forget his name. I think it's Jonah Hill, the fat dude from Superbad, who's not so fat anymore. Well, they've just made the silliest cop buddy film that I've seen in a while, and it's really funny. It's got some awesome moments. It's got some fucking cringeworthy moments that I found really hard to watch, but for the most, it was funny. There were some really good sections. I do think that the set pieces in it were a little bit weak, because you'll notice that comedies have those moments where it's supposed to really, make you laugh, and this film didn't have those moments. It was everything else that I found funny. I found that the set pieces themselves weren't all that interesting or funny, but it was everything else that made it good. And it's a pretty great film. I enjoyed it. Anybody that likes to just stupid comedies will probably enjoy it as well. And then the film I watched last night, which was Chronicle. So I didn't really know what this film was going to be. I kind of assumed it was going to be Cloverfield mixed with, I don't know, fucking Heroes or something, but it really wasn't. And I'm saying it right now, folks, I enjoyed that film a lot, and I didn't think I would. And it started off really interestingly, because it built this character of this kind of introverted, awkward, antisocial teen who gets himself into a situation where they meet him and two other guys find something very strange in the woods, and then suddenly it cuts to them understanding how to use this fucking Dragon Ball Z ability, which, yeah, I think at that point it was stretching, because, they didn't even discover they had abilities. They just suddenly went from being these kids that went in this hole to being able to smack each other with force powers, and I found it kind of weird. But that massive hole aside, it was interesting. It built towards these people using these abilities really well, and there was some super funny scenes where they were manipulating this teddy bear to scare this poor kid in a shop, and some really funny moments. And then, obviously, this power got them into a couple of spots of bother, and they realised that they needed to start respecting it. They realised that they couldn't just, nearly just use it whenever they wanted, because they could hurt people, because the more they used it just like a muscle, the stronger it became. And I thought that was great. The whole concept of, it going from this joke to going to this really serious thing, I thought was fantastic. I didn't think the way that they introduced conflict was all that great, because they built up this whole family relationship where the kid's being abused by his dad because he's a drunk and his mum's dying and all that kind of stuff. So he's constantly getting bullied, and he's not very, lucky with the ladies or popular at school and all those things that are kind of building towards an inevitable flashpoint. But they introduced this flying mechanic, which I did not see coming at all, and that's when it totally turns into Dragon Ball Z, because then they're flying and stuff, and it all seems like it's going to go okay, but there's going to be some kind of unraveling, some kind of, flashpoint, as I mentioned, that's going to come around and make everything bad. And it kicks off with his dad beating him up, and basically him having a really bad time at a party where he gets too drunk when a girl's trying to, get it on with him, and he's sick down her. And I'm looking at it like this, I don't care how drunk I am. If I'm going to be sick, I am not going to be sick on the girl that is currently undoing my trousers. That to me is just preposterous. How would you ever get yourself in that situation? You would at least be sick away where she couldn't see, or to the side of her really casually, and then, I don't know, wiped your mouth off, or with some beer or whatever the hell is in the room with you, and then just, got back onto business. Just done anything you could. Like, if you could smell it, pillar on her face, between her legs, doing your thing, job's done. She's too busy feeling good to realise that you've been sick everywhere, and before you know it, she's too up for it, and there you are, you're having fun. But this kid had no idea, so he's sick down her, and it kind of pushes this one character over the edge. So he's in a real bad mood, goes home, dad beats him up, tells him that these people aren't his friend, puts him in even worse a state, and because he's probably the strongest out of the main group that has this ability, he's losing control with it, and he ends up attacking his dad when they've sworn not to do it to people anymore. And then, because his mother's dying and they can't afford any medication, he decides to try and rob some like crack dealers, which doesn't end well, and he doesn't get enough money, so he decides to try and rob a store. Robbing this store goes wrong, it ends up putting him in the hospital, and then the film just goes fucking batshit crazy from that point onwards. And I did not expect it to go that way. It totally goes into Dragon Ball Z territory of they're knocking each other through buildings, they're knocking planes down, they're just, you know, they're getting it on, and it was pretty interesting, and I enjoyed that section a lot. And to kind of give you an example of what this film is without trying to spoil too much, it is a live-action Akira without all the head-scratching. That's literally what it is. And it's like there's none of the head-scratching, there's none of the neo-future politics, there's none of the metaphysics, there's none of that. It's just two kids with powers that were best friends that have to kill each other in the end. That's literally it. And you might not enjoy it, but for some reason I did. And I think it's because of the cameras. The found footage stuff makes everything look really vibrant, and I've just got a thing for that kind of stuff. It's a little bit contrived at times when, like, there's a girl that's put in it who's a plot device, essentially, because all she is somebody who uses a camera so that we can see what's happening outside of the main character's, like, circle, which is contrived as hell, but, you know, if they had to do it that way, that's what they had to do. But it's interesting, and I'm glad I watched it. But not too long left of this mission now. We're just coming back through the rotating Gears of Madness room with the blood goyles, and just a level that should not exist. Not on a game like this. Such a bad level. And this is the mandatory fight with the spiders, but what's going to happen is when I move through it now, it doesn't kick off. It would usually seal that door, and I would have to fight about 5 spiders, and it is not an easy fight by any standard. But thanks to the way that we went through the mission, if you follow it precisely, you will not have to do it either. It's going to save you time, it's going to save you a lot of stress, and it makes that mission a lot easier than it could have been. So thanks for watching, guys, and you take care now.